Okay. So today I'm just gonna do a video on neurofibromatosis. Here's my story. I don't have a meal to eat, so whatever. I was gonna eat some with y'all while I talk, but I don't even want to like cry or nothing, and then I got like tears in my food. So I'm gonna just talk to y'all and be as well as I can with y'all. I was supposed to work at this job. I put it all over TikTok, and I finally want to come out and tell people because I feel like it needs to be heard. I feel like my voice needs to be heard. I applied to this job. Now, I ain't gonna get no job description. I ain't gonna tell no names. I ain't gonna say no names. But I was supposed to start this job, and so I went to the orientation because this is a job I actually really wanted to work at. Like, I was too geeked. I really wanted to be there. So I went to orientation. I keep saying orientation. I went to the interview. I had to take some math tests. I did all right on the math test, I guess, because it led me to do an interview. Now, when I did the interview with 2 people, and I did okay on that because it led me to go to another interview. After my 3rd interview or whatever, he was like, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna give you first shift. We're gonna give you this shift. You're gonna work this amount of hours. After this amount of time, your pay rates go up, and then we're gonna move you over to doing something else that you already know how to do. So if you know how to do this, we'll put you on that. But you gotta pass the 3-month period. Attendance gotta be good. I'm like, that's cool with me. I'm okay with that. I could do that. So after all of that, they're like, okay, so in order for us to proceed, you have to go and take this drug test. I'm like, that's fine. I'm cool with that. I went to go take a drug test. Of course, I don't smoke, so I passed it. The lady's like, well, I was kind of embarrassed because I'm like on my cycle at the time. So a little, female, little blood got in the cup. She's like, girl, don't worry about this. I'm a nurse. I'm used to doing stuff like this. That's fine. I don't care. I mean, she had the cup, and she just, my blood just all on the cup a little bit. Tried to wipe it off the best way I could, but of course they don't want you to turn on water, so it is what it is. And then the crazy thing about it is, Miss Lady wanted to come on randomly out the blue. I'm like, Shreddy, I'm like at an interview trying to pass it, and you want to come on? But yeah, whatever. She came through, messed up the whole show. I'm pretty sure some of y'all ladies know how that stuff go. But passed the drug test. Then I had to wait 30 more minutes. She's like, oh yeah, you gotta do a physical. In my head, I'm like, a physical for a job? That's crazy. And it was a job where I had to work in a freezer. So I kind of understood, like, yeah, we got to check everything, make sure everything good, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So she's like, go in the room. In about 20 minutes, the lady will come in here, just put this gown on. Of course, take everything off except your bra and your drawers. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I proceeded to take everything off, put the robe on. A lady came in the room. Now, I was born with neurofibromatosis, born with it. Didn't happen when I was like 10 or something, and they started coming. I was actually born with it. So, after she came in, she checked my blood pressure. She hit me with the little thing, put it on my arm, checked my blood pressure. I started to proceed to tell her, like, yeah, I got neurofibromatosis, just to let you know, because of course they on my back a little bit. So I'm like, yeah, I was born with neurofibromatosis. I told her because I'm like, I don't want her to go back there. And she like, what the, you know what I'm saying? She a nurse, so I told her what it is. She like, okay, yeah, well, do you have any complications with it? I'm like, nah. She's like, do you have any problems with it? I'm like, no. She's like, do they cause you pain? I'm like, no. She's like, well, how about when you're cold? I'm like, no, everything is fine. It's just a skin condition, a skin disorder that I was born with, but it don't cause me no pain. I used to have really bad migraines from them. but I don't anymore. That stopped a while ago. So I proceeded to just tell her, like, no, I'm cool. I could work. I could do whatever it is you need me to do. So she took this little hammer thing and she hit one knee. My knee popped out. She hit the other knee. My knee flipped out. Of course, she was saying how quick my reaction was when it comes to my knees, which is cool. So everything was fine there. She checked my heart rate. She said my heart rate was good. She checked my eyes, my pupils. She said that was good. She checked my ears. I was hearing everything. I was good. She checked. I had an eye vision where I had to do like this. And E, B, C, D, do I, B, K, D, stuff like that. So after all of that, I'm like, so how did the physical go? She's like, well, you can put your stuff back on, what, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how did the physical go? She was like, oh, yeah, everything went well. We're going to fax over your paperwork to that job so they could call you for an orientation. A week passes after I had went to the little interview and did the physical and the drug test. A week passed, and I'm like, okay, so what's going on? Me being me, I called the office, and I'm like, hey, can I speak to this person so I can see what's going on with the orientation? She's like, yeah, something's going on with the, it's a note on your paperwork. Let me get back to you, but she'll call you back. I'm like, okay, so what the heck is going on? I passed the drug test. There ain't no weed in my system. So she never called me back, never did anything. After me already leaving my email, my phone number, a detailed, brief description on what was going on with me and why was I calling. All that in one little voicemail. After I did that, a week passes. Didn't hear from her, didn't hear nothing. I called again. I'm like, hey, can you tell me what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. Again, didn't hear nothing. Third time I called, or second and a half time I called, whatever. I called once again, like 3 days later, and it was like early in the morning. I'm like, hey, yeah, I understand. She probably couldn't get back to me. She probably had a little stuff to go out. Do I understand? Okay, so a couple more days passed. I call, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I call early in the morning because I'm like, I'm going to call when I know HR is supposed to be walking through the door, starting to do paperwork, starting the day up. I call early in the morning. I'm like, hey, can you tell me what's going on? I catch the lady, too. I'm like, hey, can you tell me what's going on? She's like, oh, yeah, we're going to need you to send over medical records on your, what was it called? Neurofibromatosis. I'm like, for what, though? Because it doesn't prevent me from not working. I'm not on any disability. I'm not on SSI. I haven't been on SSI. I'm not on any government support. So what's going on? And not only just saying that, like, I'm okay to work. I'm willing to work. I'm dedicated to work. I'm calling you to get a start date. I'm blowing your phone up to get a start date instead of you being professional and calling me, asking me telling me what it is I need to proceed. I had to keep calling you. That don't make sense. That's not even professional. If professionalism is, hey, Miss Lady, we need you to fax this paperwork over for this and this and that, and we need you to fax it over because this, that. We're concerned on this, we're concerned on that, we're concerned on such, so forth and so more. But once again, I'm telling you already that it doesn't prevent me from working. It hasn't ever prevented me from working. I've always had a job, and no job I've ever had took me through what I'm going through now, unless I told them something was going on. Now, after all of that, it kind of like irritated me because I'm like, I started having too many thoughts in my head. I started overthinking. I'm like, bro, like, you trying to tell me that my skin condition prevent me from working? Unprofessionally, you trying to tell me that. So I call my doctor and I tell my doctor, like, hey, can you fax this paperwork over? My doctor's like, yeah, sure, but what for? I'm like, she's like, FMLA? I'm like, nah, that's crazy, because no, it's not that. It's just them asking to what's going on. She's like, yeah. My doctor's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. We usually never hear nothing like that. Usually people are asking to send paperwork over for FMLA so they don't so it can call off when they need to or and don't get in trouble for it. I'm like, yeah, but that ain't me. She's like, oh, well, yeah, okay, well, we'll fax it over. Just fill out this paperwork, sign your name so we know that who we're sending it to and what we're doing it for. I'm like, okay, cool. I get my doctor all this information. I call the job back and I'm like, hey, yeah, my doctor told me he faxed the paperwork over. Did you get it? She's like, yeah. Now this ain't the same lady that's supposed to be calling me back. This is a totally different lady. She's like, yeah, but the lady's in a meeting. I'm gonna have to have her call you back. I'm like, okay, cool. So again, I'm still here. Didn't hear nothing. Almost a month passed now and still haven't heard anything. I called yesterday. Again, left another detailed voice message like, hey, it's me. My paperwork was sent over. It was faxed over. He told you about my skin condition. He told you there's nothing in there that's going to prevent me from working. Can you please give me a call back or you can email me here? Haven't got an email.